Welcome back to the gym. Great to see you again. Hope you had a great time last night, yesterday. That you're feeling good today. I would say I'm probably around a 7, although I think I may have to change the way that I do these things, because I've noticed that there's two different things, not just my depression, that seem to be in control of my life. Seems to be anger as well, and hate. So perhaps I need to measure them at the same time as I measure this. Anyhow, I'm feeling quite good. It's leg day again, so we're going to start with some leg presses. Friday, I was heading over to the gym to work out with a friend of mine at night, and I had to go through a random breath test. They call them RBT here in Australia, random breath test, where they just check out, see if you've been drinking or not. And obviously I hadn't been drinking, so there was no problem with that. But because I was riding a motorbike, they decided to give me a hard time. And the officer who pulled me over decided he would go through my motorbike, check it all out, make sure it's roadworthy and stuff. And they got me pretty angry because they didn't do that for anybody else's car. And he said to me, he said, "Oh, this is a really old motorbike." And I said to him, "Well, what makes you think that?" And he said, "Well, looking at it, it looks like it's from the 60s or the 70s, 1960s or 1970s. And I said, "Well, do you really feel that you're in a position to judge the age of a motorbike if you can't decide exactly what decade it was made?" And that aggravated him a little bit. And he said, "Well, I know enough to know that it's really old and it's not roadworthy." And I said, "Well, what makes you think it's not roadworthy?" And he said, "Well, the tyres look old and worn." And I said to him, "Well, have a second look." And he looked at them and he said, "Oh, yeah, well, they're okay. They'd only done 5,000 kilometres, those tyres, so they were practically new." And he said, "I don't think the brakes are right." And anyway, this kept on going, and he said, "Oh, the indicators probably don't work and everything." And in the end, he couldn't actually find anything wrong with the motorbike. He said the exhaust was wrong, that it wasn't the appropriate exhaust for the motorbike. And I said to him, "Well, it's a Kawasaki, and it still has the stamp on it saying Kawasaki, and it says how many decibels it puts out, so it is the right one for it." And he got a bit irritated with that. And I said to him, "Why don't you check the stamp on the side of the engine, on the side of the frame, where it has all the details of the motorbike?" And he had a quick look at it, and I said, "What year does it say the motorbike was made in?" And he had a look and he said, "Oh, that must be the wrong stamp for it. You've changed that. So that's illegal for a start." And I said, "Why is that?" And he says, "Well, it says it's made in 2001, but it's an old motorbike." I said, "Perhaps it's the other way around. It's made in 2001, but I've made it look like an old motorbike." So he went and compared the engine number to what was stamped on the badge, and then compared the frame number to what's stamped on the badge, and everything lines up. And he says, "Oh, well, you're free to go then, mate." And I said, "Well, it's police officers like you that make people like me dislike the police." And I said, "You could have just ignored it all and just been ignorant to the fact that you don't know anything about motorbikes and just let me go. But no, you had to try and prove your point." And in the end, all you proved that was you're ignorant. You don't know anything about motorbikes. And I rode off. And yeah, I'm still pretty angry about that event, honestly. My anger's, you know, if 10's the highest you can get angry and 0's not angry at all, then I'm probably at like a 7 or 8. But I didn't get locked up. I don't have to see the judge on Monday. So I guess that's all something good. That's different to how I used to be when I was on my medication, that's for sure. When I was on my medication, I'd fight the whole world. Didn't matter whether I was right or wrong. Oh man, I was terrible. I was so angry and filled with hate. But anyway, so I guess really a normal person would look at it, well, everything went well, you should be happy. You didn't find anything wrong with your motorbike, you didn't get any fines, you rode away, and you know, you actually made the police officer look silly when he tried to make you look silly, so you know, you should be really happy. And I guess a normal person would do that, but you and I, we suffer from depression and we're not normal people. We all wish we were, but we're not. And the other thing that happened was, I said to him, you know, it's police like you that make people like me hate police. And he said, oh, that's a pretty strong word, hate. And I said, yeah, unfortunately, you know, I do hate a lot of things. I said, don't take it personally. It's not just you I hate everything. And in fact, I hate myself more than I hate anything else. I hate being me. And he said, oh mate, you should get some help. You sound like you need some help. And I said, man, I was even worse when I was getting help. When I was seeing psychiatrists, when I was seeing therapists, when I was in clinics, I was even worse than I am now. So I'll let that help go, thank you. But that's what happened to me Friday. And as my wife would say, she's the clever one, she said it didn't happen to you, you made it happen to you. You could have kept your mouth shut and just rode off, but no, you had to open your mouth and go off and try to be the smart ass. So she's right, I made it happen. And in the end, I guess it was a good day. I rode off, I don't need to see the judge. I didn't have to pay any tickets, didn't have to pay any fines. So, all's good that ends good. Hopefully sharing it with you, I can unload some of the burden and I can move on and just try and keep plugging forward. So that was my Friday. Just letting you know that's the sort of thing I get myself into all the time because of my anger and my hate. And I really hope you guys don't suffer from the anger and hate, you just get depressed. If I had my choice that I could get rid of one, I could either be depressed and filled with anger, or I could be angry and never have any depression, then I would get rid of the anger. I hate being angry because other people suffer when I get angry, when I'm depressed. Other people get inconvenienced, but I'm the one who suffers. So the anger is probably what I'd like to get away. Unfortunately, I've never found anything that does it. I sure hope you do. I sure hope you have. And I sure hope you're doing really well. That you got no problems. Everything's great. I'd like to know that. But I guess if you're listening to my channel and listening to me, you've got the same sort of problems. Sure, I'm interested to read the comments on how different your depression is to mine. What you do, how you deal with it, how you cope with it, what your mechanisms are, how good your therapy sessions are, how good your sessions with the psychiatrist are. There's our bell. So Be the light to somebody else's darkness, guys. And thank you so much for listening.